Right, what is up YouTube? Hope everyone's doing well. Hope everyone's having a mint day. I'm having a mint day myself because today's leg day. So I'm going to take you through my session, talk a little bit about why I do certain exercises, show you some hard sets, and show you what a leg day looks like from someone who's trying to grow their legs. I'm definitely knackered today already, which is not ideal, but doesn't matter. It's completely irrelevant when it comes to training. Doesn't matter how you feel, just get in. Well, I mean, it does to an extent, but if you feel tired and it's time to train, just go anyway. If you start training and things are just not, even if they're not clicking, if things are going terrible, then you can leave the gym. But don't give up before you've even got to the gym. Like, at least get to the gym first, see how it's going, because there's so many times where I've gone to train feeling terrible, thinking like, oh, this is going to be such a bad session. Got in, after a couple of warm-up sets and like one working set, I feel great and the session goes really well. And I come out of it and yeah, I'm probably knackered, but it was a mint session. And if I didn't go then I would have missed out on a great session and I would have missed out on progress. So it's not what we want. What we want is to just go regardless. So I'm going to catch you in the gym, show you what I do for legs. Right guys, so you might be a bit confused because I said we were doing legs today, but you see me starting out with a bicep curl. What's going on? So the reason I start my leg days off with biceps is because I'm doing an upper lower split, and after my upper days, my biceps feel completely fine. This is because I don't train my biceps on my upper body days, and also because I wear lifting straps when I'm doing any of my back movements. This allows me to take tension off my biceps and my forearms and place more tension onto my lats or on my upper back, depending on which exercise that I'm doing. If you don't already have any lifting straps, definitely get some, otherwise you are missing out on back gains. This means that I can start my lower body days with biceps, and because they're not sore from the upper body days, they feel completely fine to go in. So I like to hit them fresh. So first exercise, basically just get them out of the way kind of. I always find if you do have like a weaker body part or a body part you're trying to bring up, place that towards the start of your session when you've got more energy, because you might think that you're training really hard throughout, but it's very easy to just sort of mentally tap out a little bit, especially towards like the last exercise. It's very easily done. So if you have got something weaker, place it towards the start of your session, 100%. So the bicep exercise of choice is the single arm preacher curl machine. I've sped this up because otherwise this video is going to take forever. But what you want to focus on with the preacher curl is basically just trying to keep your back of your arm. So think your tricep jammed into that arm pad. So the only movement that you want to take place is your wrist moving up towards your shoulder, which is due to you flexing your bicep basically. You don't want that elbow to move off the pad. You also don't want your body to twist into the movement. Try to keep everything absolutely still, aside from that wrist moving up towards the shoulder. That way all the tension is placed solely on the bicep and you're not cheating the reps, which is kind of hard to do on a preacher anyway if you have got everything set up properly. But I've still managed to do it in the past. I'm sure other people still managed to do it today. And if you're wondering how hard you need to train arms, take a look at how long this last rep has taken me. That's been over 10 seconds, I think. And that isn't slowing down because I'm purposely slowing it down. It's slowing down because I'm applying the same amount of force into the movement as I was on the very first rep that I did. But obviously, as the muscle gets more fatigued, despite you applying the same amount of force, the reps will naturally slow down. That's how you know you're approaching failure. Once it gets to the point where that weight just does not move, despite you applying the same amount of force that you were on the first rep as you are on the last rep, that is the point where you've reached failure, and that's where the set can end. And if you really do want to transform your physique, that is the intensity that you want to be training at. And when you do train like this, you don't need a stupid amount of sets either. That 3 sets for biceps is all I needed throughout the full session. When it comes to other exercises, like some of my leg ones, I'll need even less than 3 sets, 1 to 2 sets on most things. But if you're leaving reps in the tank each set, you're going to need more sets in order to grow compared to someone who just trains harder, because that person who trains harder is getting more effective reps out of each set. That way they don't need as many sets in order to get the same amount of stimulus to the muscle and grow from it. So if you want to get more out of less, train harder. Not only is it more time efficient, it's more fun. The next exercise we have is the adductor machine. So 1 set on here. The reason I've sped up this set, and it's been going on for still quite a while, is because I've got the full stack on here, but I think I did, if I count my reps right on this, I think I did 32, maybe more. I'd have to go back through and double check, but yeah, basically too strong for the machine, clearly. But no, it's just a light machine. So yeah, I did try and jump in it at one time, but it felt like the cable was going to snap, so I'm not risking that. But yeah, I do one set on there. This allows me to get my hips fully warm before I move on to the stiff leg deadlifts, one of the big compound exercises of the session. So in terms of how I warm up to these, I basically start with a plate, nice and light, about 7 to 8 reps or so with that. And then I move up to 2 plates. So the weight's coming up, but my warm-up reps are coming down with that because my muscles at this point are pretty much already warm. But what I'm trying to do is basically wake up my nervous system. But you only need a few reps to wake up your nervous system with some heavy weight. So for example, if your working set is like 140 kilos and you're doing sets of 8 with 120 kilos before that, you're just gassing yourself out because at that point, your nervous system's awake and your muscles are already warm. So you only need like maybe 2 reps or 1 rep even with the 120 before you touch that 140 because your muscles are already warm. So you're not going to get injured at that point. You just want to minimize the amount of fatigue that you're building up prior to that top set. That way you can get more out of the top set, which is the one where you're getting the effective reps with higher amounts of load, which basically means more mechanical tension and more muscle growth. Basically just save everything for those main first 2 sets, basically. The top set and the back off set, or however you structure your working sets. But yeah, top set on this, I did 156, I have a little 0.5 kilo plates on there. So the last couple of weeks I've been stuck with 4 reps on this. And this session going into it, I basically told myself I'm not putting that weight down. I'm not unstrapping myself from the bar until I've got the 5 reps up. Which I managed, of course, because if you genuinely tell yourself that, obviously sometimes you still won't get it, but the majority of the time you can pretty much tap into like another zone that you have. Like it's like going into like a 6th gear. You just switch it on and you just get it done. So yeah, last rep wasn't the most tidy, but as the weeks go on, I can tidy that up and then move to try and get the 6th and then go up in weight again and rinse and repeat until we get a somewhat decent stiff leg deadlift, which is far from at the moment, but we'll get there eventually. Then the back off dropped down to 143 kilos, I think. So I've got the 0.5s on here as well. And I think I got 7 on here. So I maintained what I got last week. But it moved a little bit better. So pretty happy with how it went. Still need to tighten up that last rep though. It's just, once it gets past my knee, it's just hitching galore, which is not what we want. But there's a balance between training as hard as you can and training as accurately as you can. Sometimes you just need to send that last rep just to almost like prime your body for it. Especially if you're newer to training. If you're more advanced, you should probably leave it in the tank maybe. But if you are maybe in your first 2 years of training, always just go for those reps because chances are you haven't really learned how to train as hard as possible and it's a true failure yet. So take the 50-50 reps where you don't know if you're going to get them or not. So yeah, after those 2 sets, we are moving on to a seated leg curl. First set, I wanted 6. I think I got 5.5. So just shy of that, really. Which I will get over the coming weeks. I'm determined for it. And then I actually realised on the second set, because I slightly adjusted the position of the back pad, just so my knee can be a bit more in line with the pivot point, which is what you want on the seated leg curl. But I realised that the way I've been doing it for the past however long, it's not been aligned. Hence why my hamstrings probably haven't felt as great as they could on this. They have felt great and I've progressed still. And, my hamstrings have grown regardless. But they probably could have grown even more. So, yeah, lesson learned. Make sure you have the machine set up properly before you do start the exercises. That way you are getting the most out of them. And you will make the most progress. So, yeah, 2 sets on here. First set, like I said, a little bit lower reps. Second set, I'm dropping the weight by about 2 pins on the weight stack. And I'm probably shooting for somewhere between about 10 and 13 reps. I want to say I got 10 on this. I'll have to recount that as well. Probably put the number up on the screen. And yeah, good cue with this exercise that I've definitely been implementing more recently is try and keep your rib cage down. Because when this exercise gets hard, it's very easy to want to arch your back and try and push your chest up towards the ceiling too much on this. And what that'll basically do is lead to your lower back kind of slightly trying to take over the movement, which takes range of motion out of your hamstrings, and which is not what you want because you want all the tension on your hamstrings. So yeah, try and keep your ribcage down and think of dragging your heels towards the wall behind you as opposed to just bending your knee. That way you definitely are making sure you get the full range of motion out of it. Then we are finally moving on to our quad work. So starting out with a hip press. So first set, I've got a 20 kilo plate on the bottom peg and 2.5 plates on the middle peg, I want to say. Yeah. So the reason I've got it set up like that is because when you load up the bottom peg on this, that's going to make it harder when you're locking your leg out. Whereas when you load up the top peg, it's going to make it a little bit harder in the stretch position, basically when you're like, your knees are fully bent, so you're in the hole. And as the quads, or any muscle for that matter, gets more fatigued, it's harder to lock out, whereas the strength doesn't necessarily drop off too much when you're in that stretch position, when your knees are bent. My approach to my quad movements, especially the compounds, has changed a little bit recently. Say recently, maybe the past month or so, 6 weeks possibly. What I used to do is basically just bounce the movement out the bottom. So I would do the rep, then somewhat control it, but definitely not pause it when my knees are fully bent in that hole. And then I'd do another rep and vice versa. Which, there's nothing necessarily inherently wrong with it, but what I found is, from years of doing that, I did start to notice that my knees were getting quite sore, and it got to the point where I was starting to get these like sharp pains in my knee when I was doing certain reps, and I would just have to literally cut the set there. So like, for example, I'd do like 2 reps or so with whatever weight, this a little bit more weight than this, and then my knees would just like, it literally felt like someone was just like hitting my knee with a hammer like mid rep. I just couldn't move it anymore. So what I had to do is back the weight off by probably about 15 kilos or so, then gradually work my way back up, but with basically flawless technique. So controlling the way down, otherwise known as the eccentric, for a minimum of about 3 seconds, and then taking about a second sort of like pause in the very bottom where my knees are fully bent. And what I've noticed is my strength has basically flown back up. Like I'm only about 5 kilos off what I was doing previously when I wasn't controlling it as much. But my knees feel absolutely flawless now. So if you are getting any sort of like sharp pains, or an exercise isn't progressing for you anymore, sometimes you might need to go back before you can go forwards. And it's not actually like regressing. Like you might think, oh, I'm taking weight off, I've done more than this before, what am I doing? But you're actually making it better, and you're just setting yourself up with a better foundation to then progress from further. So don't be too disheartened if you do need to do that, but you shouldn't need to do that too often. If you can get your form nailed spot like from the jump, you shouldn't ever really need to do that, to be honest. Moving on, we have got the pendulum squat. Bit of a rare machine, not every gym has this, but if your gym does have a pendulum squat or a similar sort of squat pattern, whether that's like I can't remember what it's called, like a swing squat or something. Basically, any sort of squat where you can get loads of like knee flexion out of it, definitely use it, because essentially growing your quads is just applying as much tension as you can through them, through load, while getting a full range of motion, which is this machine is great for. How I sort of do it is I place my feet very low on the platform, and I sort of let my heels rise a bit, and I'm sort of pushing off like the ball of my foot. So it's kind of like a sissy squat in a sense. Both, I'd say on the last set on that, I probably should have had my feet a little bit further forward, because it didn't feel as great. Like, I'd have to get used to it maybe. I could probably keep my feet a little bit lower down, but it just takes some getting used to. But anyways, moving on to the glute drive. So basically the last sort of like compound movement I'm doing. Whole focus with this one is trying to keep my chin tucked and my core braced throughout, so I can keep the tension on my glutes and not shift it onto my quads and my lower back. In terms of my foot position, I want to be placing my feet on there so I've got a 90-degree angle at my knee when I'm starting the movement. If you place your feet too low on the pad on this, your quads are going to take over. If you place your feet too high on the pad, your lower back's going to start to feel a bit rubbish. Which is not what you want. And I'm just really trying to get the full contraction at the top and take it to failure, of course. And guys, if you ever do want to step on stage or just want to really improve your training, don't skip glutes. I know you might think, oh, it's just for girls. But the thing is, your glutes are involved with all your leg training. So say, for example, even like a deadlift, the whole lockout portion of a deadlift, your glutes are kind of initiating that part of that. So if you can get really good with a glute drive, that's going to carry over to your strength on deadlift lockouts. So if you want a big deadlift, also don't skip glutes. And if you do ever do a bodybuilding show, it's going to look a bit weird if you have bodybuilding trunks on and you just have no glutes, whereas you have every other muscle developed. It's a very odd look, which you don't want. So another reason, don't skip glutes. Moving on to the standing calf raises. So I'm very fortunate to have a great machine like this in the gym. I'm only putting 1 set on here, but I do 2 sets of this. And the main sort of focus when I am doing calves is basically to just really control the bottom of the movement and emphasize that stretch portion. So when you're getting as much stretch out of your calf at the bottom, because you got to think when you're like walking, you're sort of on your tiptoes or like climbing upstairs, whatever the case is, you're on your tiptoes throughout the day a lot more than your calves are stretched. So that sort of tension in the stretch is something that your body, your calves specifically, are not used to. So you can definitely get a lot of stimulus out of that. And then last and least, we are finishing off with abs, of course. Don't skip abs. I didn't used to train abs in my first, let's say, 2-3. I trained abs when I very first started training, but after about 6 months, I just stopped training abs. I didn't train abs for like another 2 years. But I have noticed since starting to train abs in the past year or so, the way I can brace on all my other movements is significantly better. Like all my leg presses, all my squat patterns, deadlifts even. I can just brace my core a lot better, and I do contribute that to ab training and definitely getting them stronger. And then you've got to think as well, even though abs are revealed by losing body fat, if you can build them a little bit, they'll be able to poke out a little bit when you have got a higher body fat percentage, which is what you want, of course, because it means you can have abs without needing to get as lean. But yeah, in terms of ab exercises, on this leg session, I do this seated cable crunch type exercise with like the mini half bench. If your gym has it, it's definitely worth a go. If your gym doesn't have it, I'd probably just do this exercise like kneeling kind of. So where you're facing the cable, holding onto it in the same sort of position that I'm holding onto this rope here. And then you're just basically crunching down, doing the same sort of motion, just instead of sat on a bench, you're sort of kneeling and facing the cable directly underneath it. But yeah, and then on my other leg day, I finish off with hanging leg raises, just as many reps as possible, to failure, which usually lands between about 20 for the top set and then maybe like just shy of 15 for the second. But yeah, in terms of this, I'm aiming for like 10 to 15 reps, so I don't really see any merit in going below that on abs. To be honest, you could probably get away with going higher, really, because abs are one of those movements where you're not trying to set, like, it's not like a hack squat or a chest press where you're trying to set PRs constantly, but the intensity still needs to be there, as you can see from this last rep. It's taking me a while, and abs is a weird one because when you do take it to failure, it feels really weird. And definitely make sure you don't actually like go to crunch down on your abs after you've done the set, because if you get an ab cramp, that is brutal. And it's quite hard to get rid of it as well, because it's quite hard to stretch your abs out without like really hurting your spine. So yeah, it's not like a quad cramp where you can just, pull your heel up. It's something you want to avoid. But yeah, I finish this session always off with a bit of a dead hang, just to help decompress my spine after all, the stiff leg deadlifts. And it also somewhat helps me like get my heart rate down a little bit, so I'm not absolutely panting by the time I get back into my car after the gym. But that is a wrap of the session, so I'll probably do a little bit of a recap of it on my drive back. Right, what is up, YouTube? Hope you're all good. Just finished up my second lower session of the week, so lower B. Bit more of a posterior chain focused one, with the focus being on like stiff legs, just to really try and bring up my hamstrings, glutes, and whole posterior chain region basically. But obviously I threw quads in there too, and adductors and calves, so basically just like a leg session with a bit of a hamstring bias, because I'm hitting like all my hamstring and glute movements first pretty much, aside from hip thrust. But yeah, good session. I mean, I talked through it before, like over the training clips, so don't need to go too much into detail on how the session actually went. But it was okay. Progressed most things. Arguably could have got a couple more reps. Sorry, not a couple more. Arguably could have got another rep on maybe some of those quad compounds, but you just got to check yourself sometimes. Sometimes you think you are training to your limit, and sometimes you're not. Like that's why filming your sets so you can watch them back is such a good tool, because before I used to do that, I didn't realise that I was leaving reps in the tank. I thought I was training really hard, and I was training pretty hard, but I had more in me, and I just didn't realise because I couldn't see it necessarily. And when you're in the set, especially if you go into it feeling a bit knackered like I did today, you sort of you just don't know. Right, apologies for that small mishap with the recording. But yeah, back to legs. Great session. Yeah, not much to say on it other than just a good session, but I probably could have done some extra reps on some sets possibly. But for the most part, I took everything to absolute failure, so can't really complain. I thought I would speak a little bit about my competitive plans for the next competitive season and stuff, because obviously I last competed last year for my first competitive season. That's when I did my first show, did my first my men's physique debut, my open debut, and then I did both the natural finals and the main PCA finals in men's physique. So then I decided after those shows I'm not going to compete the next year, because my feedback from the judges for pretty much every show was condition superb, posing can be a little bit better, overall good stage confidence and stuff. So it wasn't that I needed to be more confident on stage or anything, just need to pose a little bit better. And in terms of body parts, I need to bring up my chest, need to bring up my back. Legs were good, a strong point from the quad sweep in particular was a strong point from the bodybuilding show feedback. Men's physique, they said my delts were pretty good, but yeah, and they said my abs were pretty good, which is nice considering there's not really too much you can do for them. You can't have good ab structure or you don't. You can build them up, but it's less of a thing to build up than, let's say, your legs, for example. But yeah, so the plan is really don't compete this year, pretty much carry on in a gaining phase for the next couple of months, small little pullback, bit of a diet, then go again, another gaining phase for 6 months or so, probably push body weight up to around about somewhere in the low 80s, I'd imagine I'll probably sit at, hopefully still in somewhat okay condition. Then essentially we'll probably start a prep for the next year. I'll either prep in 2027 if I feel like I've put on enough size to be competitive. I say be competitive to win the shows I want to win, or if not, then I'll just wait another year, do 2028, because I'm in the junior category till I turn 24. I'm 20 now, so essentially I could wait until 2029 if I think 2029 if I wanted, if my math is right. So there's no rush. It's just pack on the muscle in the areas I need to pack it on. Keep working on my posing, get better at that, and just enjoy it for the next couple of years, because I won't be back on the stage for a while. So this is the growing phase. This is where it's. I mean, obviously I don't rely on motivation, but motivation is great when you have it. But it's harder to be motivated when you know that your goal, the end goal, is 2 years away, as opposed to 2 months away or 2 weeks away. It's a lot easier to be mentally excited for the goal. Let's say. Obviously, I'm still getting everything done. I'm still getting all my meals in perfectly. Still training as hard as I can, the way that I need to. So yeah, everything's still getting done regardless. But it is a lot easier to be motivated when you literally have a show in a few weeks and you know that you're getting on stage in front of how many people, and you're wearing board shorts or trunks. It's a lot easier to be motivated in that scenario. But yeah, good session overall. I'm gonna go home, eat, shower, standard stuff, prep my next meal for tomorrow. Sorry, my meal one for tomorrow, and get to bed. Try and get a solid night's sleep so I can get recovered ASAP. Adios.